There's a quiet truth about children who grow up ignored. They don't scream for attention, they shrink. They walk into a room and make themselves smaller, as if their presence is an inconvenience. They fall in love and wonder, am I too much? They achieve something beautiful, and instead of celebrating, they brace for it to go unnoticed, as though invisibility is their natural state. This isn't because they lack worth, it's because their sense of self was built in silence. Psychologists call this an internalized neglect schema, a wiring of the brain that comes to expect dismissal, to believe that needs are burdens, and that love must be earned through perfection or silence. A child ignored enough times stops asking, not because they don't want to be seen, but because they've learned it's safer not to hope. Have you ever watched a child in a crowded room, quietly tugging at a sleeve, eyes wide with something to share, but met only with distraction, exhaustion, or absence? No cruelty, no shouting, just nothing. And yet inside that child, a fracture forms, because to a young mind, being unseen doesn't feel like neglect. It feels like erasure. Childhood emotional neglect rarely leaves bruises. It leaves hollow spaces, the forgotten birthday, the unanswered question, the proud drawing held up, then quietly folded away when no one looks. Do this once, and it stings. Do it 100 times, and the child learns, my joy doesn't matter. We tell ourselves children are resilient, and yes, they adapt. But adaptation is not healing. It's survival, and survival often looks like becoming the quiet one, the helper, the achiever, the peacekeeper who never says no, all while whispering inside, do I even deserve to take up space? Developmental science is clear. Children need 3 things to thrive: safety, stimulation, and connection. Of these, connection is the mirror in which they discover who they are. John Bowlby, the father of attachment theory, showed us that consistent, loving responsiveness builds a foundation of trust. But when a child's bids for connection are met with silence, their brain registers it as danger. Cortisol rises, the nervous system rewires, and over time, anxiety becomes their baseline. The tragedy? This pain is invisible. No one calls it trauma because nothing bad happened. But the absence of care is a wound, like growing up in a house without air. You survive, but you never learn to breathe freely. As adults, these children carry invisible scars. They might avoid relationships, terrified of rejection, or cling too tightly, desperate for proof they're wanted. They might overachieve, chasing validation like a ghost, or disappear entirely, convinced their dreams are too heavy for anyone to hold, and still they minimize their pain. It wasn't that bad. Others had it worse. But trauma isn't a competition. Emotional neglect is real, and its echoes last decades. Here's the paradox. The ignored child often becomes one of the most empathetic adults you'll ever meet. They read rooms like poets, sensing shifts in tone, mood, energy, because their survival once depended on it. But that gift comes at a cost. They notice everyone except themselves. Their identity remains blurry because no one reflected it back to them. So they search for validation, not out of vanity, but because they were never taught, you are enough just as you are. But here's the hopeful truth. The brain is not fixed. It can rewire. Healing begins not with grand gestures, but with tiny rebellions against silence. It's pausing to say, I'm proud of myself. It's texting a friend, can you just listen right now? It's whispering in the mirror, my feelings matter. These moments are revolutions. Each one chips away at the old belief, I don't deserve to be seen. And yes, it's terrifying. Speaking up can feel like betrayal. Asking for help can feel like weakness. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing yourself anyway. Many parents who overlook their children aren't cruel. They're overwhelmed, stressed, depressed, distracted. Sometimes they were invisible children too. The cycle runs deep. But when one person chooses to heal, the chain breaks, because healing ripples outward. The adult who learns to honor their own needs becomes the friend who listens deeply, the partner who sets boundaries with kindness, the parent who finally sees their child, not as a reflection of their stress, but as a soul worthy of attention. If you were that child, if you ever sat alone, hoping someone would notice you, if you ever swallowed your joy so others wouldn't have to carry it, hear this now. You mattered then. You matter now. Being ignored shaped you, but it does not define you. Your sensitivity is not weakness. Your longing to be seen is not selfish. It is human. And in your journey from invisibility to voice, you are not just healing yourself. You are lighting the way for others still hiding in the shadows. The child who is unseen becomes the adult who refuses to look away. And in that choice, imperfect, brave, tender, they finally discover the truth they've always deserved. You were never invisible. You were simply waiting to be seen.